'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the shop, not a tractor was stirring, not even, I don't even know where I was going with that. But just like that, we've transitioned from summer into fall, and then from fall into a very, I don't know if mild is the word I would use, winter. It's just been rain and wind here, and it's expected to freeze tonight, which is going to make the roads turn to crap, and everything's just going to be a mess. But nonetheless, here I am in the shop. Figured I'd give you guys an update on the fleet, a big and important update. This isn't going to be a fancy video by any means. I'm going to try and knock this out in one take if I can. I tried to do this video last night, and I was just falling asleep, and it didn't turn out too well. So here we go again. You know, for you guys, I don't want to make low-quality videos. I try and do the best I can, and if I'm going to do a good video, I need to be awake and alert and not falling asleep. So, you know, that unfortunately those days are few and far in between anymore. But nonetheless, here I am. It's a couple days before Christmas. I just wanted to make this update video for you guys and just kind of give you an update on the fleet, because it's going to, you know, just at a quick glance, I'm sure you can tell things look very, very different from the last shop update video. And I also wanted to fill you in on my how I've been doing trying to meet my goals for this year. So I guess to start off, I think the last time you guys would have seen my collection in its entirety, or at least this part of the collection, I had a 318 John Deere, I had a John Deere H 2-cylinder tractor, and I had an International Cub. And all three of those tractors are gone now. I've sold all of them. I know some guys are having a hard time believing I sold the 318, but trust me, it was all for good reason, and it all worked out really well in the end. In the beginning of the year, I made a video discussing my goals and my plans for 2022, and so far I think, while this year took a bit of an unexpected turn, I think everything worked out for the better for me as far as my fleet goals and my plans. And I was able to take in some new pieces from my collection and some old familiar faces. I know it's been a while since I've shown them in this video, but I'll go over each one of them individually here. I guess to start off, I sold my International Cub back in July. I sold that to a collector who actually came down from Massachusetts on a Sunday afternoon to buy it. And the reason I sold that tractor was because I frankly just wasn't very interested in it. It was cool to own just because it was an IH tractor that came from the dealership where I work, and you know, it was neat to run around in parades and local shows and stuff, but the excitement ran out after the first, like, 20 minutes. And I ran it in a 4th of July parade, not this year, but last year, and it barely had enough power to go up over a railroad embankment. So I rebuilt the carburetor thinking that would help it run a little better, and it didn't make a lick of difference. And then I realized how gutless those little C60 engines are. And reading on the forums, I think a lot of people are in agreement. So, I mean, those old Cub tractors were... yeah, they were good in their day. They were good for cultivating and little, you know, vegetable operations. But I personally just, you know, kind of lost interest in it. I don't really have any plans to own another one. So I figured it was time to move on to bigger and better things. So I listed it for sale and sent it down the road. My John Deere H that I picked up was an impulse buy summer of 2021. I bought that in upstate New York. I ended up selling that tractor because it was a restoration project that needed finished. And to really do it the right way, it would have needed to be torn back apart, painted, and had any loose odds and ends tied up on it. And it would have been a good learning experience for me, but truthfully, it was just another project that I didn't need. And at one point, the realization dawned on me that I have far, far, far more important projects waiting for me that have been waiting for a long time. And I figured that it'd be foolish of me to start a whole new one while these more important projects were still waiting. So I made the decision to sell the H. I sold it to a local collector here in Lancaster County who planned to restore it, and he was planning to have it at the local 2-cylinder club show, the Waterloo Boys show. So I'm guessing he's working on that over the winter. I guess we'll see next season if it's there or not. But I sent that one down the road, and then as some of you guys may recall, I sold my 318, my 700 original hour 318 back in the spring. I sold that to my friend Cory out in western Pennsylvania when I went out there for the plow day. And it really pained me to sell that. I had planned to keep it, but sometimes things, you know, life gets in the way, and sometimes you just got to make room. You got to let some things go for bigger and better things. And I know I kind of planned to make that like my, you know, my forever 318, but plans change, and out here in Lancaster County, PA, the 318s are plentiful. There's lots of guys that are still running them, and there's lots of nice original tractors. So if I have to look for another one, you know, scooping one up won't be a problem. So that'll come at some point. But you're probably wondering why I made the decision to sell those 3 tractors, especially the 318. And I guess I'm sure some of you guys, if you're not friends with me on Facebook, you've probably been fixated on this thing here. So I guess I'll start with the story on this one first. I'll just make this quick. This will be like the Cliff Notes version. So this is a 1957 John Deere 520 2-cylinder tractor, and it is a high clearance vegetable tractor, meaning that it has a single front wheel. It has the long rear axles with the heavy duty axle housing and carrier, and it has 42-inch rear wheels with 12 4x42 rear tires. And this tractor belonged to my grandfather many years ago. This was one of his main tractors on the farm, aside from the 60 and the 4000. This was a tractor that he always said good things about, and in hindsight, I think he probably regretted selling it. But he bought this tractor in 1958 when it was 1 year old, and at the time he was looking to upgrade from a Farmall AV. He wanted something that he could cultivate his row crops with that had a little bit more weight and a little more horsepower. And at the time, the engineers, the local field engineers from John Deere from that branch had come out to the farm to demo a 420 with a new cultivator design, and ultimately he just wasn't a fan of the way the Dubuque 2-cylinder tractors were laid out. He didn't like the foot clutch, and he just didn't like the way that the tractor pushed the cultivators. The way the cultivators were designed is that the tractor would push them instead of pull them, and when you push cultivators, the shanks start to, you know, spread apart, and then you start losing, you know, your rows don't become straight. And he just, for whatever reason, you know, he was so against that, and he wanted to go with something a little bit bigger with a different cultivator design, so he ultimately decided on a 520. And he bought this, like I said, when it was a year old. It was a New Jersey tractor its whole life. It was originally shipped to our local dealer in Elmer, New Jersey, and he ran this thing for a good 30 years, just cultivating tomatoes and peppers and also pulling a fertilizer buggy on occasion. And he ran this tractor for, like I said, about 30 years and probably 10,000 hours before he retired it, parked it in the weeds. And once he started to sell out, you know, and sold the farm, he sold this tractor to a collector friend of his up in northern New Jersey, who ultimately ended up parting it out. Now, being a vegetable tractor with the options I mentioned, like the front and rear wheel equipment, and I should also mention this tractor originally had the remote rock shafts mounted on the frame, which are pretty hard to find and expensive these days. But with those, he could control each side of the cultivators, you know, lift one side at a time. So this tractor was, you know, fully decked out with all the cultivating equipment. And in this day and age, those pieces are worth big money. And the collector that he sold it to ultimately took all those parts off of it and then left what was left of the chassis to rot. So the sheet metal was all gone. You know, shortly after the guy got it, he took all the good parts off of it, including the sheet metal, the wheels, and the 3-point hitch, and just kind of left the carcass out to rot. And in 2006, he posted the remaining parts of the chassis, everything that was still in the chassis. He listed it for sale in Lancaster Farming and in Green Magazine. And a collector actually out here in Lancaster County, PA, Shane, he came across the ad. He was looking for parts for one of his own 520 or 530 projects, and he went up to look at the tractor up in North Jersey, and he was disappointed with what he saw, except when he was about to walk away, he noticed the long axles, and he quickly realized that it was a vegetable tractor and that it was worth saving. So, to make a long story short, he ended up purchasing it, and he spent the better part of about 10 years finding all the pieces to restore it back to its former glory. And I'll tell you guys, you know, I can appreciate somebody who, you know, is a purist when it comes to details, and this thing is restored right. I mean, this tractor is probably as close to original as possible. And Shane, if you're watching this, once again, I can't thank you enough for saving my grandfather's relic. You know, it's your attention to detail is truly incredible, and I'm so thankful to be able to own this tractor and to keep it, you know, in the family, or have it back in the family as a symbol of my grandfather's, my grandfather's influence on me. And I hope with any luck I can get the 60 looking that good, you know, one of these days. And my plan for this tractor is to, you know, take it to shows and whatnot, local plow days, possibly, you know, some point in the future. and just kind of bring it around, really show it off. And you know, it's a bit of an oddball, being that it's a vegetable configuration, especially in this area where, you know, vegetable tractors are not easy to find. In New Jersey, they're everywhere. I'm told that there are 2 or 3 more 520s that were shipped to New Jersey, set up like this one. But nonetheless, you know, it certainly makes for a conversation piece, and it really makes me proud to own it. And, you know, my family is so happy to have it back. The story is just too good. So you will see many more videos of this tractor. I have several videos of it at shows that I've had it at this year. I have a little bit of catching up and editing to do, but there will be many more videos of this tractor in the future, so you'll look forward to that. And I'll probably do another, like, an in-depth walk around detailing the restoration. And I'm hoping to use that as a, you know, a bit of an inspiration and a kick to get the 60 redone, because truthfully, I'm going to be disappointed if the 60 doesn't turn out as good as this did. But anyway, so that's that's probably the biggest and one of the most important pieces to the collection, new additions, I should say. And then on to the 60 here. Yeah, surprise, surprise, it is here in the shop finally. I just last week, as a matter of fact, I hauled it up here. My uncle and I loaded it up, you know, after several years sitting on his property there, and for the first time in its life, basically, ever since it was new, it actually left the homestead and it left the state of New Jersey. Because to my knowledge, my grandfather never took it out of state. He just kept it local. He may have driven it, you know, 10 or 20 miles down the road to a field, but this is the first time it's been out of the state of New Jersey in its whole life, or since it was new. And one of my goals for this year was to get the 60 in here by the end of the year. Now, that doesn't mean I expected to have it all torn apart and ready for paint by the end of the year, but I'm just glad that it's here and it's undercover finally, because this tractor spent plenty of time outside in the harsh elements. I don't know if you can hear the wind and rain, but it's coming down pretty hard today. So last weekend, my uncle and I loaded the 60 up. We used both of his Ford loader tractors to lift the back of the 60 up and lay it down on my trailer. And I got it hauled up here, and after lots of stress and white knuckles and a torn up driveway, I managed to get it inside here. And you're probably wondering how I did that. I'll touch on that here in a little bit. But from this point on, now we can, you know, I'd like to go into 2023 with a clear mindset and, you know, a positive attitude, so that we can really start tearing into the 60 and giving it the restoration it deserves that I've been putting off for years and years and years. So I'm still in the process of acquiring some tools and just reading the manuals and figuring out everything I need to know to really get this thing stripped apart. And I'm thinking we'll probably start by taking the front axle and front wheels off, and then we'll just kind of work our way back. So I don't know what I'm in for, but it'll be exciting. I'm glad to have this thing up here with me and finally under a roof instead of out in the elements. So we're going to go in, like I said, we're going to start 2023 off on a good note, and we're going to shift our focus over towards this. So you guys will have that to look forward to. Now, like I said, you're probably wondering how I got this tractor in here, being that it weighs nearly 3 tons and is about as useful as a brick right now. So I'm going to take you outside in the wind and rain and show you what I purchased specifically to move this thing. Well, I apologize for the wind noise. The wind and rain are kind of, you know, working against us today, but this is what we got to deal with, so just bear with me. We'll only be out here for a couple minutes. So you may have seen this sitting out in one of my previous mowing videos I did. I haven't really spoken much about it, and I made a post about it here a couple months ago, but regardless, I bought this tractor here specifically to move the 60 around, you know, in and out of the building, and to use as a hoist for all of the, you know, like all the parts I may need to hang if I need to sandblast or paint anything, and to just kind of be my, you know, my load lifter, really, my engine hoist, whatever I might find use for it. So you're probably wondering why I purchased one of these, and the reason was, I mean, you know, typically for something like this, people would buy like a skid steer or a forklift for moving projects around in a shop. My problem is, with this stone driveway, a forklift would just about sink in and would become pretty useless. And a skid steer, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of room. I think it would be pretty maneuverable, but I would need to get a pretty decent sized skid steer to you know, be able to handle that kind of weight and have that kind of hydraulic capacity. And honestly, for what they're worth, they're so expensive. I mean, everybody around here, the farms around here, all use skid loaders, but I just couldn't justify the cost of one. I figure I could buy a utility tractor for much cheaper. And having grown up on my uncle's farm, you know, with his Ford industrial tractors, I had a lot of faith in these things. And I mean, I'll show you guys the video when we loaded the 60 up here. You'll see just how tough those things are. And I've seen the kind of abuse these things can tolerate. And the fact that there's still so many of them running around today, you know, is a testament to how well they were built. So I started searching around for a Ford industrial tractor, not a farm tractor, but an industrial tractor, because the industrials are typically built a little bit heavier. They have stronger hydraulics. The loaders run off of their own separate front-mounted hydraulic pump, and they're just a little bit tougher. Yeah, I like to equate the old Fords to the old Mack trucks. They just take a beating and keep on running. And I had set my mind on something in this size range with the heavier duty, welded tube front axle, as opposed to the older cast iron one-piece axle with all the steering knuckles and linkages that would wear out. They were, those older industrials and Ford utility tractors were notorious for that. But they came out, later on, like in the late 70s, early 80s, they came out with the solid front axle design, and in my opinion, that was a much better design overall. So it had to be, for what I was looking for, it had to be fairly heavy, and it had to have that improved front axle, especially for the kind of weight that I'm going to be moving with the loader. So I settled on this 340A. This is a 1984 model, which is the last year they were made before switching to the 340B. And the 340Bs, I think, are a little more common. These were designed for a lot of landscapers and contractors, and they're, like I said, they're designed to be much heavier than a typical farm tractor. Now, the front half of this tractor is the equivalent of like a Ford 3000 or 3600. It has the same 175 cubic inch 3-cylinder diesel engine that was used in so many tractors. These things are just about bulletproof, and they will run all day long and just sip fuel. They're really tough for what they are. They make a ton of torque, and they just run. So like I said, the front half of this tractor and the transmission are the same as a 3000 or 3600, but the back half is the same as a 4000 or a 4600. So this is kind of like a half breed between the two series. And then, of course, being an industrial, it has the cast iron oil pan and the heavier front bolster that can support the weight of this heavy duty loader, and the heavy front axle with true hydrostatic power steering, not that power assist crap. This one is also equipped with the 6 and 4 manual reversing transmission, which is kind of like a shuttle shift. I would have preferred a true shuttle shift, but this one will work. Basically, it's a 3-speed with high and low, and then your lower 2 gears in each range have a matched reverse gear. So it's ideal for doing loader work. Like I said, a lot of these were sold to contractors and landscapers that did loader work with them, and unfortunately a lot of them saw a hard life, and this one is no exception. I mean, the hour meter shows that it has over 6,000 hours, which doesn't surprise me. It's probably got a few thousand more if I had to guess. Those meters typically wore out prematurely. But this thing, I'll tell you what, I didn't pay very much for it, but I figure it's just enough for what I need. It came with the ROPS that I took off just so I could get it under my roof in the building there, because it had to clear the 7-foot door. And I'm probably going to trim the muffler down a little bit too. And I bought this off of a guy with a little horse farm. He just used it around the property and replaced it with a new Kubota, which is a mistake in my opinion, considering how well these are built. But I'll have more videos on this tractor especially. These are... like I said, I grew up around these industrial Fords, and I've seen what they can do. I've seen what they're capable of, and I had to have a tractor to move the 60 project around and do some other heavy lifting around here. So I picked this one up for a good deal, and I'm going to hang on to this one for a little while, I think. And it sits outside here. I mean, it's it'll start right up. I put a new battery in it and put a new air filter in it, and the thing runs great. I'm not going to start it up today just because of time, but I'll have more videos on this in the future. Back inside here, I'll just go over these little guys here that you see. A couple of new faces and one familiar one. Here's the old 210. I know it's been a couple years since I've made a video on it, and truthfully that's just because I haven't really used it much the last couple years. I think spring of 2020 was the last time I really used it for anything. I still have to repair the busted hydraulic line underneath. I know I've been letting that get away from me, but I just, I don't have much interest in these 200 series tractors anymore, but this one was kind of like my firstborn child. I can't, you get that sentimental attachment, and this year actually marked 10 years since I purchased this tractor. It's hard to believe, time has flown by like that, and it's amazing how far along this thing has come in that time. I don't use it for much anymore. I've had it at a couple shows, but I don't really do any big work with it. You might notice a couple changes to it. I got some chrome hubcaps for the front wheels, courtesy of my buddy Matt in Texas. Thanks, Matt. And I also had the hood professionally repainted with the John Deere paint and the gloss hardener, and installed some new decals and a new headlight lens to kind of freshen up the look. The original paint job that I gave it years ago was starting to flake off because it was a rattle can job, and I just wasn't happy with the way it looked. So I had that professionally redone, and I think it turned out really good. And had it all buffed and waxed by a friend of my buddy Jimmy, and I think the tractor really shines up well. It's amazing, what you learn over so many years of owning one of these things and tearing it apart and fixing it so many times. Like I said, I don't have much of a use for this tractor anymore, but I can never get rid of it. It's, for sentimental reasons. It's, in my opinion, one of the coolest looking 200 series out there. I'm not going to lie. So I'll see if I can find a use for it around here. I mean, lately, the last couple of years, it's just been a show tractor. But figure anyway, that'll give you something to look at. I know a lot of guys have been interested to see that tractor here recently, and there she is for you. So I'm not going to get rid of it, like I said, just kind of hanging on to it as a little, memento. And it took me a long time to actually get it up here, just because I had to make the room for it. But it switched places with my two Cub Cadets, my 782 and my 2072. Those are back at my grandmother's house in New Jersey, just for the winter. They're put away in storage for the time being. I guess these all are too. But here's the 210 for you. I guess I ought to touch on these two back here. So I sold my 318 in the spring, and I almost immediately regretted it. I love the 300 series, especially with the Onan engine. And I've been mowing with my 2072 with that, that super garden tractor with the 50-inch deck, and it worked out really well. It's a nice running tractor. It mows well, runs great, but it was too big for the property, honestly. There were a lot of tight corners I had to maneuver in and under, and a lot of the trees and bushes out here on the property, I didn't want to drive it underneath and scratch it up and damage it. So I wanted something that I could just kind of beat on, something that would be a little ugly, that I wouldn't have to be afraid to scratch up, and something that was mechanically sound. And I wanted a cheap 300 series again, just to get back into it, and I came across this 316 Onan here. It's a 1987 model, and it's my understanding that it's never left Lancaster County. It was sold new from the John Deere dealer just up the road from us here in Adamstown, which is now part of Deere Country. And the neat thing about this tractor, I mean, it looks a little ugly, but mechanically, I mean, somebody definitely took care of it, because it's got 2,400 hours on the original Onan engine, and it still runs great. Has a little bit of a valve tick. I think it just needs the valves adjusted, but the thing runs awesome. I mean, it doesn't leak, it doesn't smoke, it's got tons of power, and it just goes to show you a little maintenance goes a long way. I'd rather have an ugly tractor that's mechanically sound than a good-looking tractor that is, mechanically full of problems. So I bought this back in the spring. I mowed with it most of the summer when I wasn't using the 2072. Came with a 50-inch deck that was a little rough. The bearings are a little dry, and I had to weld up one of the gauge wheel posts because that was broken off. And it's a good machine for what I need, but unfortunately, due to the nature of the opposed twin engines, it used a lot of fuel. And when you're mowing a quarter acre, having to fill up literally every week when you're mowing, fill the tank up, 4-gallon tank. And with the fuel prices right now, I just had to put a stop to it. I think the fuel pickup lines in the tank have rotted off because the thing would run out of gas really quickly, especially on the hill at the back of the property. And truthfully, it was just using too much fuel for the small amount of land that I mow, and I couldn't justify continuing to use it. So I put this one up for sale. I actually have it listed right now, and it's mechanically, it's sound. I mean, I'll fix the fuel pickups before it leaves, but it's a good running machine. It's just I didn't want to have to worry about filling it up every week. So I decided to switch to a diesel, and I ended up buying this 330 here, which is an ugly duckling, as you can see. But like I said, I just wanted something that I could use as a beater, something mechanically sound but cosmetically rough that I could use to get me by for the next few years that I live at this property. Just something that I could mow with and move things around with, and it didn't have to be anything fancy. I got this thing for a really good deal. Could use a little bit of work probably, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Just give it a service and then put a deck under it and mow with it for the remainder of the time that I live in this house. And then, someday when I can finally move out and buy a place of my own with some land, I'll upgrade all my equipment and get some nicer stuff. But this will help. This will get me by for the next couple of years. And like I said, I picked this one up pretty cheap out in western PA, actually almost in West Virginia where it was. And it came with a 50-inch MTD mower deck, which had John Deere draft arms welded to it, which I thought was kind of goofy. And they were mowing with it, evidently, and it worked. But it just, I had to make it right. So I took this deck off. I'm going to sell it and probably swap the deck over from the 316. I'm not sure yet. Still looking. But this will be my mowing tractor for the time being. I don't know why I was so hesitant to buy one of these Diesel 300 series in the past, but I'm glad I did. I mean, these things just sip fuel and they're reliable. And with the price of fuel right now, I mean, I know diesel is expensive especially, but I can get off-road diesel fairly cheap, and I'm in the process of making my own diesel fuel as well. So with any luck, I'd like to try and run that in this. And these will go, rumor has it these will go twice as long on a tank of fuel compared to a gasser. So this will work for what I need. And it runs good. Like I said, I don't know any history on it, but it runs good. They were mowing with it, and somebody swapped it over to dual brake pedals from a 332, which is kind of nice because I could use the dual brake pedals on that hill out in the back. I put a set of True Power tires and wheel weights on it, and I think it'll clean up okay. It's going to be the ugly duckling, but it'll work for what I need. So I'll have some videos of that. Basically everything from here forward is for sale. So this pile of junk right here, and then the 316, I've had that listed for sale. So I'm hoping come spring I can get that moved on. And just some odds and ends here, like the MTD deck. I have a floor jack, a set of tires, and a couple of seats. A hydro pump for a Cyclops Cub Cadet. I bought that because I was planning to convert my 782 to have a rear PTO, and it just never came to fruition, and I just don't have the time or desire. And my original Brindley sleeve hitch plow that I bought 6 years ago, I just put a brand new plowshare on it, and it's ready to go to the field. I'd like to see that go to a good home. I still do the plow days and stuff, but I have 3-point plows now, and I just don't have much of a use for sleeve hitch stuff because I don't really plow with the 210 anymore. So all this stuff here is for sale. The bottom line is I need to start making room. I really need to be conscious of the space I have, and I need to shift my focus over towards what's more important. So I'd like to finish 2022 on a good note. I know my videos were kind of sparse this year, and I do apologize for that. But like I said, this year just kind of took a beating on me, and I have to be in the right mindset and have the right amount of energy and drive to make one of these videos for you guys so that you can get a good quality video. And unfortunately, that kind of energy was limited this year. So I'm coming to you here a couple days before Christmas. Hopefully this is enough to hold you guys off and just to give you a little bit of, a look at what I've been working on lately and how things have changed over the course of the year. And my plan is to go into 2023 with a positive mindset and, with the motivation to get this restoration project started and really, get going with it. So it's indoors now, and I got all kinds of guys around here in the area that are, two-cylinder collectors that are real knowledgeable with these tractors and are willing to help me. So we're going to get this thing torn apart and give it the restoration it deserves. So it might be a 5-year project, it might be a 10-year project, but we'll get it done the right way, a little bit at a time. And I'm looking forward to having you guys along with me for the journey. So hopefully that's enough to hold you guys off for a little while. I got a lot of videos from this past summer that I'm overdue on, editing and uploading, and I will get them out soon, I promise. I need to find the time here. I got a couple days. I'll try and get something together and just kind of fill you guys in. Those videos will fill you in on all the missing details. And like I said, looking forward to 2023. I'd like to thank you guys for all your support and for putting it out there, staying with me through all this time, through all the ups and downs, and through on the last 10 years, of course. And I can't wait to see what 2023 holds. So hope you guys have a Merry Christmas or a Happy Holiday and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2023.